What if the most powerful thing about you wasn't what you said, but what you chose not to? In a world that never stops talking, silence has become rare. We're taught to speak up, to share more, to always be heard. But in the philosophy of the Stoics, silence isn't emptiness. It's presence, it's discipline, it's strength, and those who learn to embrace it, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, often become the most grounded, most respected, and most resilient people you'll ever meet. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." That's not just advice. That's a way of life. And in today's episode, we'll explore what it means to truly live that way. This is not about being shy. It's not about withholding your voice. It's about knowing its value. It's about being so connected to your thoughts, your emotions, and your purpose that you don't need to speak unless there's something worth saying. And when you do, people listen, because silence is not a lack of power. It's a control of power. It's not weakness, it's refinement. The ones who speak less are not empty. They are full of awareness, full of understanding, full of strength that doesn't need to be shouted to be felt. This video is for you. If you've ever felt like your silence was misunderstood, if you've ever chosen stillness over performance, or if you're learning to step back, think more, and speak only when your words are rooted in truth. We're going to walk through 10 timeless traits, the kind of quiet power that Stoic wisdom teaches us to respect. And as you listen, I invite you to reflect on your own presence. How often do you speak just to be heard? And how would your life shift if you chose instead to speak from silence, not from noise? Let's begin this journey inward, where the truest voice often starts not with sound, but with stillness. Trait 1. The silent listener, hearing what others miss. There's a rare kind of strength in being able to sit quietly, fully present, completely still, while another person speaks. Not waiting to reply, not crafting a comeback, just listening. Deeply, attentively. That's a skill most people overlook. But not you, not if you're drawn to the path of stillness. True listening is an act of mastery. It demands humility, it demands patience, and most of all, it demands presence. Epictetus said it clearly. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. He wasn't simply offering a clever observation. He was pointing to a foundational truth. Wisdom begins not with speaking, but with hearing. And not just hearing words, but hearing what's behind them. The hesitation in someone's voice, the unspoken worry behind a confident smile, the pain wrapped in a joke. When you choose to listen silently, you begin to see people in a way most never do. You begin to see beneath the surface. The world is loud. Conversations are often competitions. Everyone wants to speak, to advise, to impress. But few are willing to witness another person. Few are willing to create that rare space. The one where someone finally feels heard, maybe for the first time. And here's the paradox. When you become that kind of listener, the quiet one who watches, who absorbs, who understands, people start coming to you not because you speak the most, but because they feel the most understood in your silence. Think of the wise old teacher in any story. They rarely interrupt. They rarely fill the air. But when they speak, their words land like thunder. Why? Because their silence made room for meaning. In your own life, you've likely had moments when someone truly listened to you, not distracted, not planning their reply, but with you. Remember how that felt. Safe. Seen, real, that's the kind of impact you can have without saying much at all. Listening is not passive. It's a silent contribution to the healing and clarity of others. It's stoicism in practice, putting ego aside to be fully in the moment. Because the Stoic way isn't about making yourself the center of attention. It's about being deeply aware of the world around you and responding to it with wisdom, not impulse. So if you find yourself speaking less these days, if you felt the pull to simply be in the room, in the moment, know this: you're not retreating. You're awakening a skill that few possess. And that quiet way of yours, it might just be your greatest strength. Trait 2, the thoughtful observer, speaking only after seeing clearly. There's something deeply powerful about the person who doesn't rush to speak, someone who doesn't interrupt, someone who watches, listens, and waits. Not because they're unsure of themselves, but because they're committed to understanding before they speak. That's the essence of being a thoughtful observer. You don't just react. You see, you read the room before you contribute. You notice what's said and what isn't. You pay attention to people's eyes, their pauses, the tension in the air, all the invisible cues that reveal what's truly happening beneath the surface. In Stoicism, this pause, this moment of clarity before action, is sacred. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. For I seek the truth which never harmed anyone." This isn't just about humility, it's about being deliberate, not speaking until you know what you're truly responding to. You don't speak to fill silence, you speak to bring light. In a world addicted to speed, your stillness becomes rare. And rare things are powerful. Think of the ancient story of the archer. Before releasing the arrow, the archer waits, breathes, observes the wind, measures the distance. Then, with precision, they let go. One shot, carefully placed, is worth 100 rushed ones. Your words, too, should land like that. When you pause before you speak, you're honoring something most people forget, that your words have weight. And the clearer you see the situation, the more accurate, kind, and useful your response becomes. This isn't about being slow. It's about being wise, and that wisdom comes from your ability to detach, to step back, to wait until the fog clears before offering anything to the world. You may have been misunderstood for being quiet, but the truth is, you've just learned to think first, to feel first, to observe with care. And when you do speak, it's not noise, it's truth, truth shaped by stillness. Truth shaped by clarity, that kind of presence, that kind of restraint. It doesn't just make you powerful, it makes you trusted. So if you've ever wondered why you don't jump into every debate, why you stay silent in moments when others rush to speak, now you know it's because you see more, and you speak only when the words have earned their place. Trait 3, the strategic thinker. Using silence as a tactic. Not all silence is softness. Sometimes silence is steel, controlled, calculated. A tactic in the hands of someone who knows their strength lies not in what they say, but in what they withhold. You've probably felt this before, in a conversation, a negotiation, a moment of tension. The urge to speak rises, but you don't. Not because you're afraid, but because you've learned the longer you wait, the clearer everything becomes. And often, the power shifts in your favor. This is the mindset of the strategic thinker. someone who doesn't rush to reveal their position, someone who uses silence not as retreat but as precision. Sun Tzu, the legendary military strategist, wrote, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." That's what you're doing when you use silence with intent. You're not hiding. You're observing. You're allowing the other side to overextend, to show their hand, while you remain composed and unreadable. In Stoic philosophy, this restraint is not manipulation. It's wisdom. Seneca said, "He who does not know how to be silent will not know how to speak." The Stoics believed that every word you utter carries a cost, a piece of your energy, your clarity, your presence. To use your words wisely is to protect your most vital resource, your attention. Let's bring this into a real-world scenario. Imagine you're in a salary negotiation. The offer lands on the table. It's lower than expected. Instead of reacting, you pause. The silence grows. You don't fill it. You sit with it. And the other party, now unsure, maybe a little uncomfortable, begins to talk. They revise, they justify, and often they offer more. Not because you said something powerful, but because you didn't. That pause, that space, it was filled with strength. Your silence said everything. I know my value. I don't need to rush. I move with purpose. This doesn't only apply in business. It applies in life, in conflict, in love, in leadership. The person who doesn't speak impulsively, who knows when to wait, when to observe, and when to strike with precision. That person earns quiet respect. You become unshakable. Not through aggression, but through strategy. So if you've ever felt like silence gave you clarity, if you've watched others fill the space while you measured the moment, you're not passive. You're powerful. You're using silence like a blade, not to wound, but to cut through the noise. That is the heart of strategic thinking. And it begins in stillness. Trait 4. The charismatic leader, commanding attention without demanding it. There's a kind of presence that doesn't shout. It doesn't interrupt. It doesn't beg to be seen. But when it enters the room, everything shifts. The atmosphere settles. Eyes turn, not because of volume, but because of gravity. That is the mark of a truly charismatic leader. And you don't need a title, a stage, or a spotlight to become one. Your quiet presence alone can speak volumes. In Stoicism, this kind of presence comes not from arrogance, but from alignment. When your actions, your values, and your energy move in harmony. You don't push yourself onto others. You draw them in. And you do it by being anchored, focused, and fully engaged. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." It's not performance that earns trust. It's authenticity. When your words are few but chosen with care, when your actions are consistent with your principles, people naturally pay attention. They feel something rare. And in today's noisy world, that kind of presence is magnetic. True charisma doesn't demand the room. It grounds it. Think of the calm leader during a crisis. While others panic, they stay composed. They don't overpromise. They don't dramatize. They observe, speak simply, and act decisively. That's power. And the source of it is stillness, an inner steadiness that says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to serve something real. You might remember a moment like this from your own life. A mentor, a parent, a colleague, someone who didn't need to talk much. But when they did, their words had weight. They listened more than they spoke. They made you feel heard, seen, centered. This isn't about being reserved. It's about being rooted. Stoic charisma doesn't rely on charm or performance. It's born from self-awareness, knowing who you are, what you believe, and not being easily shaken. You can develop this presence. You already are. Every time you pause before speaking, every time you lead by example instead of explanation, you build that kind of leadership. Because the quietest person in the room is often the most certain. And certainty, when it comes from integrity, not ego, is unforgettable. So if you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold of the loud, flashy, assertive leader, take heart. That's not your weakness. It's your distinction. People follow noise when they don't know what they're looking for, but they follow quiet strength when they find it. Let your silence hold meaning. Let your stillness inspire movement, and let your presence speak the kind of truth that doesn't fade when the words are gone. Trait 5, the deep reflector, processing before speaking. You've felt this before. A moment rises, emotions swell. And while others rush to respond, you pause. You don't react. You process. Because you understand something powerful. Not every thought deserves to become a word. This is the quiet strength of the deep reflector. Someone who doesn't speak to fill silence, but to offer substance. Someone who understands that timing, tone, and intention matter more than volume. You don't speak just to be heard. You speak to be understood. The Stoic philosopher Zeno of Citium once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." And if you've ever said something in haste and regretted it, you know why those words still ring true centuries later. Reflection is not hesitation, it's maturity. It's the mind checking in with the heart before the mouth opens. Deep reflection creates emotional clarity. When you hold your tongue and look inward, you give yourself room to understand what you're really feeling and why. Is it anger, fear, ego, or truth? This pause gives birth to wisdom, because once you've looked at the full picture, your words no longer react. They respond. They bring calm instead of chaos. Resolution instead of regret. Think of the ancient image of the philosopher sitting in stillness beneath a tree, not withdrawn but engaged, internally. That's not fantasy, that's practice. That's your practice every time you breathe before speaking. Every time you choose to understand before expressing. Consider the impact of such a pause in relationships. When a loved one says something that hurts, the instinct is to strike back. But what happens when you take a breath instead? When you reflect before responding, you soften the blow. You de-escalate. You open space for truth. And in doing so, you don't just protect the relationship, you elevate it. This is the subtle beauty of being a deep reflector. Your words become fewer, but fuller. They carry the weight of thought and the grace of restraint. And people begin to notice. They lean in when you speak, not because you demand it, but because they've learned. You don't waste your voice. Processing before speaking is an act of service. To yourself, to others, to the moment. It's a small choice that says, I honor the power of my words. And that changes everything. How you communicate, how you lead, and how you're remembered. So the next time the world rushes toward reaction and you feel the fire rise in your chest, pause. Breathe. Process. Because the person who reflects deeply speaks with precision, and that is a strength no storm can shake. Trait 6. The humble giver, leading without needing credit. You don't need applause to know your impact. You don't need recognition to feel your worth, because real strength doesn't seek the spotlight. It leaves a mark that doesn't need a name attached to it. The humble giver leads quietly. They build without boasting. They help without announcing. And they inspire, not by standing above others, but by standing with them. Maybe that sounds like you. Maybe you've felt that tug, the desire to contribute, to serve, but not to be seen doing it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that's exactly what the humble giver does. No long speeches. No need to be the hero, just simple, sincere action. Because you're not doing it for praise, you're doing it because it's right. True leadership isn't loud, it's present, it's consistent. It lifts others even when no one's watching. And the most powerful leaders often don't look like leaders at all. They're the ones who stay after the meeting to check in with someone. Who let others take credit if it helps the team rise. Who give, not for a return, but for the quiet joy of knowing someone else is better because they showed up. In a world that often rewards visibility, the humble giver chooses a different path. You choose significance over attention, impact over image. You know the difference between doing something meaningful and doing something memorable, and you always choose meaning. This isn't weakness, this is inner security, because when you no longer need validation, you're free. Free to serve without fear, free to lead without ego, free to be a quiet force that changes everything, not through noise, but through presence. Think of Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful men. He journaled his deepest reflections, not for the world, but for himself. And those writings, never meant for praise, have inspired generations. Because the truth is, your quiet strength may echo further than any shouted message ever could. So what does this look like in real life? It looks like the parent who sacrifices without complaint, the team member who mentors without needing a title, the stranger who helps and walks away. And if you are that person, if you've ever felt unseen in your efforts, let this be your reminder. Your kindness is not unnoticed by life. The Stoics would tell you that virtue is its own reward, and it is. So keep leading, even in the shadows. Keep giving, even when no one says thank you. Because the legacy of the humble giver isn't written in headlines, it's etched into lives, silently, powerfully, forever. Trait 7. The emotionally grounded, choosing silence over drama. You've been in the room before. The tension is sharp. Voices are rising, and there's that one person, calm, composed, quiet. They don't react. They don't explode. They choose silence. That person might be you. Or it could be who you're becoming. Either way, that kind of composure isn't luck, it's practice. It's a quiet decision to protect your peace rather than feed the fire. The emotionally grounded are not passive, they're powerful. They know that energy is limited, that attention is currency, and they don't spend theirs chasing drama. Not because they're afraid of confrontation, but because they know most chaos isn't worth the cost. They understand what the Stoics taught centuries ago. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Epictetus. Read that again. Your reaction is your responsibility, and silence, not avoidance but wise restraint, is often your greatest weapon. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. That's not weakness, that's maturity, that's strength. When someone throws chaos your way and you respond with calm, that's not just self-control, that's leadership. Think of a captain in a storm. The crew is panicked, waves are pounding, but the captain isn't shouting over the wind. He's steady, he's focused, he's quiet, because he knows panic is contagious, and so is calm. You can be that captain. When others lose themselves in conflict, you stay anchored. Not because you're emotionless, but because you're grounded in something deeper. Your values, your principles, your peace. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress emotion. It invites you to own it, to recognize that your feelings are valid, but not always trustworthy. That anger, fear, jealousy, they're visitors. You can let them pass without giving them the mic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" What you say in fury, what you do in reaction, those are the things that echo long after the moment has passed. So the emotionally grounded person waits. They breathe before they speak. They ask themselves, is this moment worth my peace? Is this fight worth my energy? Will my words bring clarity or just more noise? And often, the answer is no. So they stay silent, they stay soft, they stay powerful. And here's the truth. The one who keeps their cool holds the true control, because they are not ruled by the storm, they are rooted beneath it. If that's the person you're becoming, keep going. Every time you choose silence over drama, presence over provocation, you are training a kind of inner mastery that cannot be shaken. And in a world full of shouting, your calm will be louder than any words could ever be. Trait 8. The focused achiever. Eliminating noise to sharpen power. There's a quiet kind of greatness that doesn't come from hustle. It comes from clarity. From tuning out the noise. From knowing what truly matters and giving it your full, undivided presence. That's the path of the focused achiever. And maybe deep down, you know it's your path too. In a world addicted to distraction, focus is a superpower. The average person is pulled in 100 directions before breakfast. Notifications, opinions, trends, expectations. But you, when you choose silence, when you remove the noise, you reclaim something precious, your mind. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't just talking about ancient battles or personal misfortunes. He was speaking to you here now, surrounded by the chaos of modern life. When you clear the clutter, what remains is direction. You begin to hear the whisper of your real priorities. The projects that matter, the relationships that give, the work that fulfills. And just like sharpening a blade, your energy becomes precise, focused, effective. Think of a sculptor staring at a block of marble. There's noise in that stone, 1,000 possible forms, but the artist doesn't attack it wildly. He studies, he listens, and with each strike he eliminates what doesn't belong until the essential remains. That's what the focused achiever does, not just with tasks, but with life. You cut away distractions. You say no more often, not because you're cold or closed off, but because your time is sacred and your purpose deserves silence to thrive. Seneca said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." And the truth is, when your attention is scattered, your power is too. But when you choose to go deep on one thing, one mission, one value, you become unstoppable. There's a story of a modern-day entrepreneur who turned down endless opportunities to stay committed to her vision. While others chased popularity, she chased depth. And when the noise faded, she had built something timeless. Her secret wasn't speed. It wasn't even luck. It was focus and the courage to create it in silence. So ask yourself, what noise do you need to silence? What demands are stealing your power without giving anything back? What distractions are making you busy but not better? Because when you choose silence, not just from words but from chaos, you choose clarity. And with clarity, your steps get sharper, your progress gets cleaner, and your power begins to echo, not in volume but in results. You don't need to move fast, you need to move true. And the only way to do that is to get quiet enough to hear what really calls you. Let that silence sharpen you, let it guide you, because your greatest impact won't come from doing more. It'll come from doing what matters, with everything you've got. Trait 9. The Stoic Negotiator, pausing to shift the balance. You don't need to raise your voice to win. You don't need to overpower anyone with words to walk away with what matters most. Sometimes all it takes is a pause. A moment of silence can change everything. In the world of negotiation, whether it's about a contract, a boundary, or a life decision, many people rush to fill the quiet. They fear silence. They fumble to justify themselves. But you can choose differently. You can choose to pause, to breathe, to hold your ground in calm silence. And in doing so, you shift the balance of the entire room. As Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." He understood that rushed words can do more damage than clumsy actions. And in high-stakes moments, silence is not just self-control, it's strategy. Think of a salary negotiation. You've done your homework, you've made your request. The offer comes back lower than expected. Most people react, defending, explaining, even pleading, but you pause. You say nothing. You look them in the eye and let the silence do the speaking, and suddenly the pressure shifts. They begin to doubt, to wonder if they've undervalued you. In that quiet tension, you gain the upper hand without saying a word. This is not manipulation. This is mastery. Mastery over impulse, over ego, over the need to explain your worth, and that's deeply Stoic. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That means in negotiation, when someone pressures you, you don't mirror their haste or their tactics. You anchor yourself. You respond with poise. You don't just react, you respond when the moment is right. Silence gives you the gift of time, time to think. Time to feel your own body. Time to sense not just what the other person is saying, but what they aren't saying. And when you finally speak, your words land with weight. Let me tell you a quick story. There's a tale of an ancient merchant who once sat before a king, bartering for the value of his rare spices. The king dismissed his offer, laughing at the price. The merchant didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply remained silent, looking into the distance. Minutes passed. The king, uncomfortable in the stillness, leaned forward and said, "Perhaps I was too quick. What do you suggest is fair?" The merchant replied softly, "Exactly what I said the first time. That is the strength of silence." Not defiance, not arrogance, but composure rooted in self-respect. So the next time you're in a negotiation, pause. Don't rush to explain. Don't rush to settle. Let the moment breathe. Let the silence build. And then, only when it matters most, speak. Because you are not just trying to win an argument, you are shaping a relationship, defending your value, and choosing dignity. And as every Stoic knows, The most powerful move in the room is not the loudest. It's the calmest. Trait 10. The resilient soul, finding strength in stillness. When life storms rage around you, your instinct may be to fight back with equal force, but there's another way, standing still. Not because you're defeated, but because you've learned that stillness itself is your strength. Stillness is not surrender. It's the heart's way of pausing, to gather your power, to steady your breath, to remember who you are beneath the chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That realization comes in moments of quiet resolve, when you refuse to be swept away by fear, anger, or panic. You've faced hardship before. Maybe heartbreak, a setback at work, a loss you thought would break you. And yet here you are, still standing, because you discovered that the deepest resilience isn't built in the heat of battle, but in the quiet moments afterward, when you choose to rise again. In Stoic tradition, stillness is the sacred ground of renewal. Seneca taught that difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body, but that strengthening often happens away from the glare of drama, in the reflective calm that follows adversity. It's during that pause you integrate lessons, realign your values, and chart a course forward. Consider the legend of the bamboo tree. For years, it appears nothing is happening. You water it, you nurture it. Then, in its 5th year, it shoots up 80 feet in just a few weeks. That growth was happening underground the whole time, roots forming in silence, gathering strength unseen. Like the bamboo, your resilience grows in stillness, out of sight but deeply rooted. Stillness lets you endure without breaking. It allows you to sit with discomfort, to feel loss without losing yourself. When you don't rush to numb or distract, you discover an inner refuge no one can invade. You become unshakable because your ground is unmovable. In the midst of tragedy, you find a place inside that remains intact. You feel the pain, you honor it, and then you let it pass, like clouds across a steady sky. That steadiness becomes your beacon. Others look at you and sense it. Even if you never speak of your trials, they see someone who doesn't collapse under pressure, but crystallizes it into wisdom. This resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about welcoming it as a teacher. It's about trusting that after every storm, the calm will come, stronger, clearer, more compassionate. So when the next crisis hits, remember, you don't have to outshout the gale. You don't have to prove your toughness with frantic action. You can stand firm in stillness, anchored by your values, nourished by your inner calm. That is the essence of the resilient soul, finding strength not in what you do, but in who you become when everything else falls away. And in that sacred silence, you find the power to rise, again and again. Conclusion: let stillness be your strength. You've walked through 10 traits that transform silence into power. You've seen how listening, observing, strategizing, and grounding yourself in stillness can reshape not only your words, but your world. Remember, every pause you take, every moment you choose calm over chaos, you forge a deeper resilience that no external storm can shake. If this journey has sparked something within you, an urge to embrace stillness, to lead with quiet confidence, to build your inner strength, then keep going. Let your growth be your message. Let your actions reflect the wisdom you've discovered here. Subscribe to the Stoic Philosophy for more insights that honor your silence and amplify your power. Walk forward, not louder, but stronger.